Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. With 2021 almost coming to a close, today I'm going to share my picks for the 15 best movies of the year. So 2021 was a much better year for movies compared to 2020 because a lot more movies came out, but also in 2020 a bunch of movies just got delayed. But this year we actually got a ton of great movies, and there's probably ones I haven't seen either. So let me know down in the comments, what are some of you guys' favorite movies of 2021, and what are some that I missed? What are some that I never got a chance to see? Now, there were movies that I wanted to watch, like The Last Duel and West Side Story, that I just never got a chance to. And if I do, they probably would make it into this list. But right now, this is my top 15 movies of the ones that I have seen. Okay, so I wanted to do some honorable mentions, but I forgot to. So the movies you're looking at on your screen right now are some movies that I really enjoyed, but they didn't quite make it into my top 15. Kicking things off at number 15 is Encanto. This was a movie I literally saw a couple of days ago, and I didn't really know what to expect, but I saw it and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it was a really good movie, and when I was watching it with my sister, we both had a really good time. As someone that's not really into musicals, I think the music in this movie was great. All the songs were really fun, and I really enjoyed all of them. And even the visuals, animation, all of that was great. Obviously, it's Disney, so the animation is always really good. But I think here, it was just top notch. I think it's some of the best animation I've seen all year. And just the style, the visual look of everything was really cool. I also really like the themes about family and how you don't have to have how you don't have to have superpowers and gifts to be special. I think in an age where we're having a bunch of superhero movies, and as someone that loves superhero movies, I think this is a really nice change of pace. The reason I can't put this higher is because I did have some problems with like the ending of the movie. It does feel a little rushed, and I feel like the movie was setting up something big, but it never went all the way there, which I was a little disappointed by. But still, as a whole, this was a great movie, so it's in my top 15. At number 14 is Nobody. This was an action movie that honestly I didn't know much about. I saw it a while after it came out, and I really liked this movie. I think it's great. First off, Bob Odenkirk is just great in the main role. The action is really fun and brutal too. It's really R-rated, so you see some really brutal action. And a lot of people compare it to John Wick, and I get that, but to me, this movie is quite different from John Wick because this movie is much more brutal than John Wick is. Don't get me wrong, John Wick is R-rated, so there are some brutal sequences, but in John Wick, the action sequences are much more choreographed, and because Keanu Reeves is much younger than Bob Odenkirk, he can do a lot of things, a lot of different stunts that Bob Odenkirk can't. So for that reason, this movie just feels a lot more brutal and realistic, which I really enjoyed. Now on a story level, the movie isn't Shakespeare. It's not like top tier story, but still, as a whole, I thoroughly enjoyed this film, and the action is some of the best I've seen all year. At number 13 is The Tomorrow War. This was a movie that honestly, I did not know what to expect, but I saw it, I really liked it. Now, just the main concept intrigued me about Chris Pratt starring in a sci-fi movie with aliens. That just sounds great to me. So I was intrigued by that, but I just didn't know what to expect from the movie because the trailers didn't give too much away. And I saw the movie, and my god, it's really good, in my opinion. I know a lot of people don't like it as much as I did, but I thought it was great. The whole movie, Chris Pratt's character, I forgot his name, but he's like motivated by his relationship with his daughter, and for that reason, it does feel really relatable, and it's kind of a father-daughter story in that way, and throughout the entire movie, I think you really saw that, which I really enjoyed. The movie also has some great action and some really exciting sequences. They're all shot really well. I think it's visually a really cool movie. And the creature design for the monsters in the film was really cool. And it's some of the best creature design I've seen in a long time. Personally, I'd say it's on par with the Quiet Place movies because it just looks great. Now, I understand that a lot of people don't like this movie as much as I do. And I understand that there's some clear problems with the story and the plot. But still, for what the movie was, it really entertained me, and I had a blast watching it both the times that I did. And number 12 is one of the most surprising movies of the year for me. It's called Sham, Singh. This is a movie from India, and it's really good. I honestly had very low expectations. I did not expect it to be in my top 15, and I saw it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. The main concept is kind of silly, but if you can get over that, I think this is truly a great film because it has a story with main characters that you kind of care about. And even though the first half is a little clunky in execution, I think the second half of the movie really picks things up and makes everything in the first half better, and the ending of the movie is also great. I think the ending really elevated the whole movie for me. So to me, even though the first half could be a little clunky and weird, the second half of the movie really picked things up, and I really enjoyed this film. At number 11, Free Guy. This is another movie that really surprised me this year. I didn't get to see it in theaters. I wanted to, but I just didn't get the chance to. But when it came out on PVOD, I got a chance to see it, and my god, it's really, really good. It's a really fun movie to watch. Ryan Reynolds is great in the lead role, and it's kind of a video game movie, so in that way, it's just, there's a lot of different video game references, which were a ton of fun, and just pop culture references in general, which was great. There's a bunch of cameos in there that were a ton of fun to watch, and there's some really cool moments as well. And it's just a movie that's lighthearted, and you can put it on anytime and watch it, and for that reason, it just made me smile. The movie also has some really nice themes, which I thought was great. And like I said, Ryan Reynolds is just great in the lead role. And as you go into the ending of the movie, it kind of turns into a love story, which I did not expect. And when it did, it just worked perfectly well. I did not expect that kind of a transition, but it worked for some reason. Somehow they were able to pull it off, and I loved it. At number 10, Raya and the Last Dragon. To me, this is better than Encanto. I think it's the best Disney film of the year. It's really good, and because you have a story with some main characters that you really care about and this dragon, and the way it's done, it's really cool. I think the animation style is great. There's some really good action. Some of the best action I've ever seen in an animated movie, and it's just a fun time. I saw it with my sister. I think I saw it like 2 or 3 times, and every time I saw it, I had a blast watching it, and it was just really fun and enjoyable. The movie is also not afraid to get dark at times, and when it does, it's really impactful, but it's also a really, just hopeful film, and the themes about coming together, uniting, I think really resonated with me, and it's a movie that I think it just made an impact on me that I can't forget. At number 9 is King Richard. This was a movie that honestly I went in with really high expectations, and the movie was still great. I think Will Smith was great in the lead role. The tennis sequences are really, really good. The rest of the cast is great, and especially Jon Bernthal, he just steals the show. Every time he's on screen, he's fun to watch, he's charismatic, and his performance just works really well in the film. It's also a really heartfelt story because I'm pretty sure Venus and Serena Williams were the people that produced this movie, and because you're seeing their father through their eyes, I think the way they just portray him was great. Will Smith's performance definitely deserves an Oscar, and the entire movie, it's just really enjoyable, but it's a story about a father and these 2 daughters and the way he helped them become who they are today. And I think that was a really nice story, and the way it played out, and by the end of the movie, it just worked really well for me, and it paid off in a really satisfying way. The movie also explores some really important themes in a really good way, and when the movie was doing that and telling the story about these characters and all of that, I think just came together to form one of the best films of the year. And number 8 is The Mitchells vs. the Machines. This is the best animated movie of the year, in my opinion, but also the most surprising movie of the year, because I really didn't have any expectations going into the movie, but I heard some really good reviews, so I went and saw it, and my god, I fell in love with it. I saw this movie a couple of times, and both times I really had a great time watching it. First off, you're following this family that's just really relatable, because a lot of the things that this family is going through, a lot of different families go through, and you see that, and because of that, it's just extremely relatable, and it works really well. And I think it's a really fun family movie, but it's also one that I can just put on anytime and watch because it's really enjoyable. The animation style is great, it's unique, but it also works so well because it's kind of boring from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, but it's a lot more just vibrant to watch. It also has a great lead character, and because of that, it's really fun, and you're watching it through kind of her perspective, which is why everything's really wacky and crazy. And even though it gets kind of ridiculous as you go into the 3rd act, it's still really enjoyable, and it's still focused on the family, so in my opinion, it still really works. At number 7 is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, the latest Marvel origin story. This was a film I just loved a lot more than I thought I would, because people were talking about Eternal, Spiderman No Way Home, and the excitement for this movie wasn't really there, but I saw it, and oh my god, it was great. I think this is definitely one of the best MCU movies to date, and it's just fun. I think the origin story of Shang-Chi is told really, really well. You obviously have one of the best MCU villains in the Mandarin, or Van Vu, whatever you want to call him. He's just such a great villain, and he's played to perfection by Tony Lee Young. And I think you can really buy his performance as someone that's just trying to save his wife, even though he knows that she's dead. And the way it plays out by the end of the film, I think is really, really well done. The movie definitely has some of the best action in the entire MCU, and I'd argue that the bus fight in this movie is the best action scene of the entire year. I just rewatched the action scenes in this movie a lot, especially that bus fight, because it's really cool, and the music that goes along with the action scenes is really pleasant and just flows really well with the action itself. The movie also has a really good story and great direction, so by the end of it, it just pays off really nicely. So to me, this is one of the best movies of the year. And number 6 for me is Spider-Man No Way Home, the movie that just broke $1 billion, and I know a lot of people are going to have this at number 1, and a lot of people are going to want me to have it at number 1, but I can't quite put it that high because I do have some problems with the first half of the movie. But to me, the second half of this movie is pretty much perfect. Everything is great. It has a really great sense of danger at times, and the way it's told, the story, the action, the fan service, all of that is great. And even in the first half, there's some really good stuff done. And I like the way it continues off of Far From Home because you have Peter's identity being revealed, and you see the implications of that, which I really liked. The movie also has great fan servicey moments. Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil anything. But as you go into the third act, the movie is just great. And there's so many moments where the audience in my theater, when I was watching it, just started freaking out, and it was great. So yeah, like I said, I think the second half of this movie is pretty much perfect. I just think the first half has some problems, especially like with the whole Doctor Strange's spell thing. It does have some issues, which is why I can't quite put it in my top 5. Before I give you guys my top 5, be sure to hit the like button if you've been enjoying this video. And if you want more of my content, obviously check out the videos up there and subscribe to my channel. And now let's continue. And number 5 is The Suicide Squad. This is James Gunn's latest movie, and my god, he does it again. He does the same thing that he did with Guardians of the Galaxy. He brings a bunch of characters that not many people know, and he makes us fall in love with them and tells a great story. And to me, I think this movie was fantastic. It's not just fun to watch, it's also a really well told story with a very well constructed plot. And as you go into the end of it, it just pays off really nicely. But it's also a really fun movie. It's fun to watch. It obviously has a bunch of R-rated stuff in it, which makes it do some things that you can't do in a regular comic book movie. So I think that was great. And James Gunn is just all over this film. His style, his soundtrack choices, all of that is great. And this movie also introduced me to my favorite song. So there's a lot of things going for this movie. I think it's great. Now I do have some minor issues, but they're really minor. They're basically just nitpicks, so they don't hold the movie back too much for me. And yeah, as a whole, I just have a blast watching this movie, and by the end of it, it's just a really, really fun ride. And number 4 is Dune. To me, this movie I just fell in love with this movie. I saw it for the first time, and honestly, I really liked it. I loved it. But every time I've seen it since then, I think I've seen it 4 times. All 4 times I loved it. And on rewatch, I think it got better and better. First off, the story is just really well told because Denis Villeneuve takes his time to build the story up, and he's not concluding the story here yet, so he takes his time, and because of that, you have these characters that you care about. And by the end of the movie, because I like the characters so much, I wanted to see more of where this goes, and I'm really excited for the sequel. This movie made me really excited to see Dune 2. The action is also great. It's not an action movie, there's not a ton of action, but when it's there, there's some really cool action. Visually, it's probably the best movie I've seen all year. It looks beautiful, and the score by Hans Zimmer is probably the best score of the year because the music is just great, fits really well with the movie, and it's really epic too. Denis Villeneuve does a great job bringing his vision to life, and I know a lot of people don't like the movie because it's like really slow. To me, it being slow is what makes it so good because it takes its time to build everything up. And when you see Dune 2, I feel like because the movie took its time, I think Dune 2 is going to pay off even better just because the movie took its time to build everything up, all the characters, the story, and the world. The reason I can't quite put it in my top 3 is because it's not a complete story. I wish the movie kind of had a checkpoint to reach, so that way when it got to the end it would pay off really well. And if that was the case, I would put it at my number 3. But because it feels like half of a story, I can't quite put it in my top 3. But still, I love this movie a lot and I really, really enjoyed it. And number 3 is A Quiet Place Part 2. I would say this movie is pretty much a perfect sequel. It continues off the first film really well, but it takes the story to a larger scale. It's bigger in scale, and you have 2 different stories kind of going on at the same time, but they all pay off really, really well. The cast is great here. Obviously, Emily Blunt is the main character, kind of. She's really good. Millicent Simmons and Noah Jupe as our kids are great. And Cillian Murphy is a newcomer to the franchise, and I think he does a great job. John Krasinski's direction is great. There's some really terrifying moments, and it's a pretty scary movie, but it's really more of a thriller, and because of that, it works so well. It takes what the first movie set up and takes it to the next level, so for that reason, there's even more moments where you just want to stay quiet because it's scary and you feel like you're living in the movie, and for that reason, I think the movie really takes us and puts us back in that experience. And this was the first movie I saw back in the theater after like 17 months, so that does kind of affect my opinion a little bit, but still, I love this movie so much, and honestly, I think it might even be better than the first. Now, before I share my top two, I just want to say I heavily debated these two. I think both of these movies are utterly fantastic, and I love both of them a lot. They're also a little divisive. I know there's people that don't like them, but to me, my top two are fantastic films. I did debate switching them around. I rewatched them before recording this video, and I might switch them around later on in my lifetime, but as of right now, this is my ranking of my top two. Our runner-up would be No Time to Die. This is the latest James Bond movie, and I think it was a great conclusion to Daniel Craig's run as James Bond. It's not just a great story, it just brings his character full circle and ends at a point where it's emotional, but it's also a really good story. The movie has a great cast and all the characters are really well explored, and because we've been following Daniel Craig's Bond for the past few movies, this movie is just able to follow those up and bring everything together and conclude it in a way that feels satisfying. Obviously, it's James Bond, so we have to talk about the action. I think the action in this movie is fantastic, and of all the James Bond movies, at least that I've seen, I've only seen the Daniel Craig ones, I would say that the action in this movie is the best. I think it's better than Casino Royale, Skyfall, Spectre, and Quantum of Solace. It easily has the best action sequences. It doesn't have the most. It's pretty slow at times, and I understand if other people have a problem with that. I don't. But when the action's happening, I would say it's the best action of the entire Daniel Craig run as Bond. Now, I understand that people have problems with the character of James Bond with Daniel Craig, and I get it, but I haven't seen all the other James Bond movies, and I'm not someone that grew up with the James Bond franchise. I saw all the movies recently of the Daniel Craig ones leading up to No Time to Die. So from what I know about the character in the previous movies of Daniel Craig's run, I think this was a great conclusion to Daniel Craig's run as Bond, and it just brought everything full circle, and I think it was a great conclusion to his character. Like I said, I heavily debated putting this at number one, but I think the villain, Safin, is not really that good. Rami Malek's performance is good, but I don't think that the character himself is really good, so I think he held the movie back from being my favorite movie of the year. But obviously, coming in at first place is The Kissing Booth 3. I think this movie is a masterclass in filmmaking. It's such a great story, and the characters really compelling, and the way it all pays off is fantastic. Okay, I'm gonna stop joking around. I honestly haven't even seen this movie. Actually, coming in at first place is Zack Snyder's Justice League. To me, this is the best movie of the year. It just does such a great job of telling its story, taking its time to build up its characters, and because you have the 2017 version that isn't really good, I think this movie, it just elevated because of that. Whereas in the 2017 version, everything is just rushed to come to a conclusion. Here, this movie, it's 4 hours long, so it takes a really long time to get going, but when it does, it's great. The movie takes its time to build up the world, build up the characters, build up the story, but it also has a sense of danger to it, a sense of doom, that you know something bad is gonna happen. So by the end of it, you really want our heroes to win, which just makes up for a really thrilling experience. The movie also has a great sound design and visual style. Both of it, they just look great and sound great, and they add to the movie in my opinion. And I saw the movie literally like a few minutes ago, so watching it then I think was really, really cool and elevated my experience because I noticed a lot of things that I never saw before. I've also seen this movie 9 times, and it's 4 hours long, and seeing it 9 times in less than a year is obviously really cool. I think the movie is really that good, and I think it just does a great job of telling its story. It takes its time to build up the characters, like especially Flash and Cyborg, that really weren't good in the 2017 version. Here, they're actually just great characters, and the way their character arcs come to a close in the third act is great. And also, because the movie takes its time to build everything up, when you go into the third act, the payoff is even better, and there's some really cool sequences. Obviously, I would say the Flash scene is one of the best comic book movie sequences in history. I think when Superman shows up, it's really, really cool. And you have a villain, Steppenwolf, who's much better because he has a more compelling motivation than he does in the 2017 version. And it's just a movie that is able to conclude Zack Snyder's vision, but also set up a bunch of things for the future. And I really want to see where this goes. I think the fact that this movie exists is enough for me to be really happy because I really want to see a good Justice League movie. And I finally saw it, and it's the best movie of the year, in my opinion. But I do want to see where the Snyderverse was going, but it looks like we're not going to see that anytime soon. I do hope we get to see more of the Snyderverse because I love Man of Steel. I enjoy Batman vs. Superman. I don't love it. But this movie, like I said, it's the best movie of the year. And I hope at some point we get to see where the Snyderverse goes because to me, I think this movie's fantastic. So I understand that a lot of people don't like Zack Snyder's Justice League and No Time to Die. But to me, both of those are the best movies of the year, and I slightly prefer Zack Snyder's Justice League. It takes its time to tell its story, spends a lot of time on the characters, and it pays off really well in the third act. So to me, Zack Snyder's Justice League is the best movie of 2021. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. Let me know down in the comments, what are your favorite movies of the year? And thank you so much for being along with me this year, because this year was when I started my YouTube channel, and I really appreciate everyone that stuck around this long and supported me. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.